Hi friends, it's Becky, and today I'm going to make a beaded chain necklace using some of the beads from the May Dollar Bead Box, which I've already made some earrings with when I unboxed this, but I haven't made anything else with it yet. So I thought I would pull out some of these beads and start laying some things out, get things set up. Wasn't quite sure what I wanted to make when I sat down, and I've solidified an idea in my mind. I'm also going to make a little bracelet to go with it too. But the first thing I did was I made a little link here with one of these red coin beans, and one end of my link I have attached to the little Tree of Life charm that came in that box. And then the other link is just open and ready to be attached, and that's going to be my focal. So let me show you how I make these links. I'm just going to do some wire wrapped links, some wrapped loops, and I'm going to use some 22 gauge craft wire for this. And I'm going to just show you how I make them, and I'm going to make a couple links with you, and then I'm going to go and relax and listen to an audiobook and make a few of these other links. And then when I'm done making the links, I'll come back and we'll put this together. So these are the 4 beads that I'm going to be making links out of. I've got plenty over here to make them with. I've got one of these red nugget beads. I've got the red coin beads. I've got these leaf beads that have the heart leaf beads that have the travertine finish and the red wash. And then I've got these golden druck beads. I think they're 6mm drucks in there. And I've just gone ahead and put them all on my beading wire, because when I do links like this, and I'm going to show you how I sort of do a whole bunch at once, just with these 4, how I do multiple wire wrapped links when I'm just, making some beaded chains. So basically I'm going to take my wire, and I've got everything already on the spoon. I'm just going to work off the spool when I do this. And let me just show you my tools that I'm going to be using. I have a 6-step bail making pliers. I'm going to be using the smallest loop on this for my links. You can also use round nose pliers. There's nothing wrong. You do not have to use these if you don't have them. I've got some chain nose pliers that I'm going to be using for holding my loops while I'm wrapping, and also for tucking in the ends of my wire when I cut them off. And then I've got some flush cutters for cutting my wire when I am done with my wrapping. And I'm also, when I'm done doing all of these wrapped loop links, I'll be putting them together with some jump rings. So when we get to that point, we'll do all of that. But otherwise, this is basically going to be what I'm making it with. I might also grab you know what? Maybe I'll make my own. No, we'll do a clasp. I'll figure out a clasp when we get there. The first thing we're going to do, though, is we're going to make some loops and some links. So I'm going to start with my wire. And I like to bend it back first before I bring it around the loop that I'm wrapping around, and that just helps the loop to be centered a little bit more over the middle of that wire. And then once I've got my first loop looped, I'm going to grab it with my pliers. I'm just going to use my fingers to push it around that core of that wire. Now this wire is like a dead soft wire, so you don't have to push very hard. It'll wrap just fine. It's very easy to manipulate. In fact, you might push it a little too hard, but that's okay, because you can just push it right back. So once I've got my first loop wrapped, I push my bead up against it, and then about 2.5 or 3 fingers down, that's where I'm going to cut this so that I can make my second loop. And my second loop, I'm going to grasp my wire right next to my bead, push that over the top of it so it bends it, and that leaves me enough space over here that after I just use my finger and push it over the top of my round form, I've got some room down here to wrap around with the end of this wire. And I'm just going to keep wrapping till I get to my bead. And then once I've got to my bead, I clip off my excess. And if I have a little pokey bit, I tuck it in with my chain nose pliers. And that's one link done. And now I move on to the next one. And I do the same thing. About 2.5 inches from the top, I bend it back, bring the wire over, rotate my pliers, bring it all the way around so it's crossing it. And then just gently, with your thumb and your finger, push this around the ends until it's wrapped. And this is just, it's kind of relaxing actually to me to just make links, to just sit there, make some links while I'm busy watching something or listening to a story or doing something else like that. Just so I've got my hands busy. But then at the end of it, I've got something that I've made. Let me push our bead up. And what did I say? It was about 2 to 3 fingers width down. And then, where's my pliers? Just grasp that right there above the bead, push it over the top. And then we go around. And let me do one where I am scooched in a little bit so you can see a little more detail of what I'm doing. Because this one's a little bit further out so you can see like my entire hand movements. Sometimes it helps to see the whole thing. And this is not wrapping the way I want it to. You know what? That's okay. I do not need perfect wraps for this necklace. I'm not making it for a person or to sell it. I am making it for me. There we go. That's my second link. All right, so let's scooch in a little bit so you can see a little more detail while I'm making this. When you've got these longer beads, they tend to get stuck if the wire's not smooth and straight. So I'm just straightening it out a little bit. Well, let's scooch in so you can see a little closer what I'm doing. So about 2 inches from the top, I bend it back first and then up and over. See? So it bends it like that. And then just keep going around until the wire is crossed, like when you cross a scarf around your neck, that sort of thing. And then now that I've got my loop, I'm going to hold on to my loop while I wrap it. And the reason I hold on to it with my pliers is so that as I'm wrapping, it doesn't tighten the loop or make it smaller than I want it to be. And we're just, you know, again, gently pushing this around 3 times, 3 or 4. However many you want. I'm just scooching my wire up, snugging it up a little bit. It doesn't have to be snugged. It's just one of those things that I like to do. And I've got a little pokey bit there. I'm just going to tuck that in. All right, and here I want to straighten this out a little bit more so that when I move the bead up along it, it doesn't get stopped. And then 2 or 3 fingers down from that bead, I'm going to give that a cut. And now right here along the top of this bead, I'm going to bend over the top of my plier like that. And go around again. And I like to use my 6-step filmmaking pliers when I do this because that way I get a consistent size loop on all of my links because I can just use the same size. You can make a mark on your round nose pliers so that you can make sure that you're always wrapping on the same spot if you wanted to make sure that you have a consistent size on your wrapped loops. I just don't feel like I don't have to do that because I've got these, so I don't need to do that. All right, let's just go. Yeah, around one more time. That was fine, fine, fine. All right, and that's my third link that I'm making. And then my final link is going to be one of these ones with this smaller druck, and it's going to be exactly the same methodology that I'm using for all of these. I'm making the same kind of link. They just have different beads on them, and that's the only difference between them. And I am using all of the red nugget beads that came in the box. I'm using all of the red coin beads except for one, because I'm keeping this one out for my bracelet that I'm going to be making. And then I'm just filling in some spaces with those drucks, and I'm using both of those heart leaf beads. So once I have all of my links done, I will come back and we will put this together, and we'll make ourselves a little necklace. And then once I've made the necklace, we'll make a bracelet. And I don't know if my bracelet is going to be a wire wrapped bracelet, if we're going to do it that way, or I might just string it. And I'm leaning heavily towards stringing, but we're going to be using a lot of the same beads for that bracelet, so it'll go with it, it'll match it. I am going to, instead of some of those other beads, I'm going to be using some of these square beads for the bracelet. So I've got them all set aside and ready to go when we get to it. But I am going to go and relax and finish making the rest of these links so that I can put this necklace together with y'all in a little bit. All right, I have all of my links made and I'm ready to put together my necklace. And to do that, I've got some of these 5mm jump rings, and I'm just going to be opening and closing them and putting 2 links together before I close them. And I'll do this until I have all of my links assembled for my necklace. Now, to open and close jump rings, you want to hold one end of it sturdy and steady while you twist the other end open like that. And then to close it, you do the same thing. You hold that end steady while you twist the other end closed. And I like to use these wide nose pliers to hold it, or if you don't want to constantly be picking up and putting down your pliers, you could use one of these tools. It's a jump ring tool, and basically it's just got this little ridge here that you stick the jump ring in, and it holds it steady while you twist it open. And that way you don't have to constantly be picking up and putting down pliers while you're doing a repetitive task like this. But then you have to remember that you have it on your finger and do it like that. This is one of those tools that maybe you got it in a thing of jump rings or with some other beading tools and you're like, how do I use that? But yeah, it makes it a little bit easier. It's not something that I use that often though, because I usually forget about it unless it's sitting right there. It came with this set of jump rings, so the fact that it came with it means it's just right there in case I need it. But it's just one of those things that makes it a little bit easier to do this if you're doing more than one at a time. If I'm only doing like one jump ring though, I'm not going to go fishing around for this. And I think that didn't close all the way. No, it did not. So let's get that back in there. Close that up properly. Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't always want to go fishing around for it, so I'll just grab something else to hold the end of my jump ring. Like sometimes I'll use my my crimper to hold the end of the jump ring, because all you really need is for it to hold it steady while you twist it with your pliers. Like that. And pretty soon you'll have a chain that you can use for your necklace. Okay, so now we're getting close to the end. And I just was putting this together with my yellowy bead and then a red bead and then a yellow bead and a red bead. So now I'm here and I want to put my red bead on right there. And this is another reason why this can be a little awkward. It's because it might slip on you while you're in the middle of doing it. But like anything else, you get better. You get better with it the more you practice with it. The more often you do it. All right, one more. Bloop. All right. And I've got another strand that I already put together. Oop, I am missing one of my links there. I made some extras, so they're just in here already done. Let's just make sure that these are going to be the same length for both ends of my necklace. There we go. Same length. And now let's get this focal. I'm going to put a jump ring on here and attach it to one of these. Because it doesn't really matter which one I put on first. Chain strands. There we go. And then I'm going to open up a second one and do the same thing. There we go. Now, on the center of my necklace done, I'm going to put a jump ring on the end of this strand, just a jump ring. And then I'm going to put a jump ring and a lobster clasp on the end of the other strand over there. And that will finish my necklace, my beaded chain necklace. Okay. And yeah, this Dollar Bead Box was one that was kind of like, oh, hang on, wait a minute, is it Christmas already? But you don't have to use red and green beads together. You could use red and gold like I did here, or red and brown like I'm going to do on this bracelet, and save the green for like something else, like maybe green and brown or green and yellow. So you could do Christmassy seeming things, or you could do things that aren't quite so Christmassy for that. So let's move that aside and get our bracelet out here. I'm going to put this away because I don't think I need it anymore. Might leave that out though. Actually, no, I'll put it away because I've got my other thing here that I can open things with. And that way I won't forget it later. All right, now for this, when I was planning this out, I realized that just the square beads and the round beads all by themselves aren't going to be long enough for a bracelet. So I think what I'm doing instead, or in addition to that, is I'm just going to add a few extra red beads. Some of these fire polish beads that came in the bead bag. I'm going to add these to it, and that should give me a little more length on this bracelet if I have them here like that. So as far as stringing, I want to do some bead stringing on some beading wire. And I'm going to just use this bone colored beading wire. And I'm just going to start stringing it on here. Before I even cut the wire, I'm just going to string on all of my beads, see how long it is, and then we will attach some clasps. Because we are just doing simple strung bracelets today. We did a beaded chain necklace, and we're just going to have a strung bracelet to go with it. With the lobster clasp on one end and some loops on the other. There we go. See, that's going to pad that out a little bit. And also bring more of that red color from my focal bead out to the rest of the bracelet. I really like this. This is like kind of a mid-century modern kind of a look, where you have like the bold geometric shapes and earthy colors. All right. Yep, that was the perfect amount of beads to add for this to be a decent size. All right. Just going to add another bead to this end, and I'm going to grab another lobster clasp and some crimps so we can crimp this. Got some 2x2 crimp tubes. And I'm going to use my favorite crimper. It's my magical crimper. It works best with 2x2 crimp tubes and 0.018 or 019 wire, which is what I've got here. I'm going to put on the crimp tube first. And then my clasp. Bend that wire back. And I'm going to crimp it. It has this concavity inside of it. And I'm going to center the crimp tube in. When I do that and do my first smush, it's going to make it look like a smushed ravioli where the corners are smushed down. So then I change the angle, I just turn it and smush it again, and then turn it and smush it again. And as you go, it's going to look, if you look at it, you're going to see it looking real weird, not very round, but the more you go around it and squeeze, the more it's going to smooth down those edges and give you a nice smooth crimp bead when you're finished going around it. All right, and I'm going to cut my excess wire here. Sometimes you can fit your wire twice through a bead, but not these beads, so bloop. That'll do it there. And I can cut off that end. Make sure I bookend because I added an extra fair polish bead. So I'm just going to add an extra on this end too, so that it matches. So both ends have that red bead on the end. And I'm going to do the same thing over here, except I'm going to, actually, you know what? I'm just going to do a loop, and then I can put my jump rings through the loop. It doesn't have to be, because jump rings will open and close, won't they? It doesn't have to be right here. I can just make my loop like this and then add my jump rings after. So let's go ahead and crimp this end. And often, especially with this wire, it is a very sturdy wire. You can just use this loop instead of adding jump rings to it. And the wire will hold up really well, actually, to just being a regular old loop. It'll last, and there's actually several bracelets and designs that I've done where I just left the wire looped like that, and it was just fine. But I am going to add some jump rings on this, and I'm just going to make a little chain real quick with them. These two are already together. Let's open up another one. And this is just going to act like a little extender chain, so that in case it's too tight or I want it a little bit looser, I can just hook it on to different parts of the chain, and that'll be fine. One more. See? I don't have to have that ready by the time I do my crimping. I can come back and do it after. Perfect. I didn't test my, I usually test a lobster clasp before I attach it, and I didn't on this one. It's a little bit stiff, but it does work. It does open. I'm gonna just use this little bit of chain, and I'm going to hold on to it with my finger. It's going to be so much easier, I think. Now I've got a necklace and a bracelet using the Dollar Bead Box for May. And Dollar Bead Bag. I used some of the beads from that too. Most of these were Dollar Bead Box though. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a wonderful week, and I will chat with you later. Bye!